Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and this is an original booktube tag. I've been around for close to 5 months now, and I thought I might have one to share some thoughts. So I've been spending some time hiking outdoors and seeing a lot of insects flying around, crawling around, and some other fun critters. So I thought, let's do an arthropod book tag. You're probably wondering, what the heck is an arthropod? Well, an arthropod, very large phylum of invertebrates. If it's something that if it's an animal that has its skeleton on the outside, an exoskeleton, and its organs on the inside, the opposite of human. So it has an exoskeleton and then it has a segmented body, likely an arthropod. So we're going to take a look at a few. So the first one, some insects are critical to our global ecosystem because they transfer pollen between flowering plants, stimulating biodiversity and the reproduction of those species. What is a book or genre that has pollinated your reading life and helped you restart reading? Well, for me, it's I, the Jury by Mickey Spillane. It's one of his Mike Hammer novels. Really enjoyed it. A few years ago, I had a period of life that was very stressful, very intensive, mostly work-related. And as I was sort of doing a reset, one of the things I started doing again was reading more consistently. And this was one of the first books I read, and it helped me kind of just get in the right mindset of I really enjoyed stories, I really enjoyed reading. I had still been reading, probably 20 to 30 books a year, but I hadn't necessarily been enjoying what I was reading and just needing to reset. So, I, the Jury, pollinated my life. It was great. Prompt 2, is there an insect you find particularly interesting? Well, ever since I was a kid, we always thought dragonflies were really cool because they were just big, and they had the word dragon in them. So that was really the only reason I thought dragonflies were interesting. I think now there are many other insects that were more interesting, but for a long time I've always just had this fascination for dragonflies. They just seemed cool. Prompt 3, arachnids famously create webs to trap their prey. What is a work that really stuck to you and drew you into its world? For that, I'm going to go with a short story. I'm going to go with The Tower of the Elephant by Robert E. Howard, one of the Conan the Cimmerian books. It's in the first 50, 100 pages. I think it's the third story that's in this book. And so I had read the 2 or 3 that were before that, and then I got to Tower of the Elephant, and I was just like, whoa! This is adventure. This is sword and sorcery. This is fascinating. This is weird. And it had a sensibility where Conan feels sympathy for the elephant and for this alien creature, but he also has his own values and identity, and the conflict that just is embedded in there. And it was fascinating. Loved it. So it entranced me. I read the rest of the book. I read many other Robert E. Howard works and just dove into that genre. Prompt 4 now. The myriapod, millipede, derives its name from the belief that it has 1,000 legs. In reality, most species have fewer than 700. What is a work that had a high page count, but felt much shorter as you read it? And so I was trying to think of something. What was something that was long, but didn't feel long when I was reading it? And it might just be because I'm a dork. And it might just be because I enjoyed the translation. But I grabbed the Iliad by Homer, the Robert Fagles translation. Even though this is almost 700 pages, about 650 pages of text, it just moves. And it's a little bit like Robert E. Howard. They feel of a piece. It just moves. There's an energy to it, a vitality to it. And you get the interspersing the scenes with the Greek pantheon and the gods versus the Greeks versus the Trojans, interspersing all of those different pieces and narratives just, I think, helps it move in a very swift way. Perhaps not as swift as Achilles can run, but a swift book nonetheless. Prompt 5. The scorpion is an infamous arachnid with a venomous stinger on its tail. What is a work that stung you with its ending? Well, I'm going to tell a very brief anecdote about scorpions. So I lived my entire life in Arizona. In college, and I've never had a scorpion in my home, in the place I've been living in my yard. Never seen one. However, in college, they took a group of us, my sophomore year of college, up to a camp outside of Tucson. And it was like a hall the freshmen and sophomores who sort of were on their hall councils and some RAs. So we're up there, and a friend and I go into, we were in a different cabin talking to some other people there. And my friend goes and this was at nighttime, my friend goes and turns on the fan, and as it starts, something falls on the ground. He goes, "Whoa, did you see that? That looked like that bug just like threw itself off the fan." And I look, and it's all like furry and hazy. It's like, it looked like a blur. And I'm thinking, okay, it's like 7 o'clock at night. I'm not that glassy-eyed. What's going on? And I realized it was a scorpion, and the furry part was all of the baby scorpions on its back that were flooding off of it in an enclosed cabin. I just started stomping. Other people jumped on bunk beds. They were screaming, yelling. Didn't matter if it was a male or female college student, screaming and yelling. And I was just standing there going, ah! Stomping. And then this fool ran in. I was trying to, stomp in a circular pattern. And the large scorpion ran under a cot. My friend and I went, and he hadn't jumped onto a bed yet. We grabbed the cot and threw it across this cabin. And the scorpion's just there in the middle of this room. Everybody's vacated. And people are, of course, here screaming in a cabin, and they're worried about something, some type of assault occurring, probably. Not scorpion with 20 babies on the floor. So people come running in, and they see this scorpion there, and some guy ran up and took off his shoe and tried to hit it, and he missed it. And I said, "You missed it." And he goes, nah, bro. And he looks at, he's still down there, and he looks at the scorpion, and it flicks its stinger at him. And he just screams, and I think he almost fainted or soiled himself or something. So at that point, I just went in and crushed the final scorpion. So there's my scorpion story. They're poisonous and scary. Something that stung me with its ending. 2 works. Since I stomped a bunch of scorpions that night, I've got 2 works. One is A Perfect Day for a Banana Fish. Perfect Day for Banana Fish by J.D. Salinger. I had no idea what was going to happen in that final paragraph. I really thought it was just like this sweet vignette, at the seaside. And then the other one is Don't Look Now by Daphne du Maurier. Famous, I believe that was adapted in a film with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie. And it makes you not want to go to Venice, despite Venice being very beautiful and interesting. It was scary. It had quite the ending. They both stung me. Haunt me. Prompt 6. Crustaceans are a diverse subphylum of arthropods that live in water. Name a work that makes you think of the sea. The Honorable Schoolboy by John le Carré, the second book in the Smiley trilogy, the sequel to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, in which Smiley sends Jerry Westerby out to Hong Kong and Vietnam to try and, wreak havoc upon the Soviet intelligence service there in Eastern Asia. And there's really not a lot of water or seaside business going on in this book at all. However, I read it on my honeymoon when we honeymooned in San Diego, and I read most of this book sitting on Imperial Beach in San Diego. And I also went running on Imperial Beach and ran south, and realized when I no longer saw anybody and was tired and thirsty that San Diego doesn't really extend south of Imperial Beach, and that the city that I was running towards and that was looming closer and closer so that I could pick out the windows on buildings was Tijuana in Mexico. And then I didn't have my keys or ID or anything. At which point I turned around and ran back along the Pacific coast to Imperial Beach in San Diego. So I always think of this when I think of the ocean. Prompt 7. The trilobites flourished in the oceans before going extinct in the Permian mass extinction. Who is a writer that will not produce any more works and that you believe was influential and is now sadly undervalued? And I grabbed 2. I might be wrong on this, but I don't hear very many people talk about Willa Cather's novels. I think she has, she's got a story that's frequently anthologized, but I don't hear too many people talk about her novels, particularly A Lost Lady. I think is some type of minor masterpiece, if not masterpiece, of fiction. And from a variety of perspectives, both from generational perspectives, from gender perspectives, just really encapsulates so much in its short series. So I think Willa Cather, for whatever reason, is neglected. And the other one, who I think is being much more seriously neglected, is D.H. Lawrence. In his novels, I think he really only has Women in Love and the Rainbow as really, really strong novels. He has so many good short stories, though. His poetry is excellent. He had some weird politics. He had some weird, maybe beliefs in terms of government. But his writing has a power and an energy that is quite beautiful, and that I don't think enough people get into. Prompt 8. Is there an arthropod you're afraid of or concerned about? Well, I told my story of scorpions. I'm not super afraid of them. I'm not really afraid of insects or spiders. Spiders, though, I'll put it this way. Because I have kids now, I do constantly rove around outside on our property. We live in downtown Phoenix, but rove around our yard to make sure we don't have spiders, because I don't want a black widow spider biting either of my daughters. I'm really not worried about scorpions with our location, but we do get spiders. So spiders are the ones I'm worried about. Prompt 9. We're going to end on a high note now. I hope I haven't scared anybody. Some arthropods, like the butterfly, undergo an extraordinary metamorphosis. The fully grown butterfly soars above the ground that the caterpillar scuttles across. What is a work that opened your mind and helped it to take flight? In terms of fiction, I think that Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel did things I had never realized a work of historical fiction could do. It brought senses of stream of consciousness, nonlinear narratives. It built in imagery and theme in a way that so few historical novels do, and was just really fun and interesting. It humanized Thomas Cromwell, who's been vilified for years. It pointed out some of the inadequacies of Thomas More, who's been lionized for years, and it did all of that within this just pulsing narrative that we very much feel like we're in the river team, sitting in the boat with these characters as they go downstream. So I loved it, and it did so many things that I had never realized could be done with fiction. The other one is from the Bible. I would say the Gospel of Mark continues to just almost terrify me when I read it, with the level of energy, the level of immediacy that courses through it, that courses through the scripture. And it is one that I don't think I ever appreciated as a child or as a teenager, and it wasn't until I was in probably my late 20s that I would read the Gospel of Mark and I was like, holy cow, this is different. This is in your face. So that's my Arthropod book tag. And I know a lot of people have been, I don't want to say self-conscious, but have been considerate of how they're tagging, who they're tagging. So I don't want to force anybody to do this. If you'd like to, that's great. I had fun with it. I've been tagged by some of these people. Noah at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse has tagged me 3 times, so I'm going to tag him back. Codex Cantina, Una and Crypto have tagged me, so I'm going to tag them. One more birthday tag for Crypto in here. Brian at Bookish seems to be doing a lot of tags, so I'll throw him in. Timmy at Lost Cunningham, he had a great one where he did the questions with his wife, which I thought was beautiful. Steve Donahue always complains that people don't tag him because they're worried about how he smells. And arthropods give us help pollinate these flowers that smell so good, so Steve has nothing to worry about. So anybody, and honestly anybody else who'd like to do this, spread the pollen. See you.